Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everybody. So nice to be here. I'm honored to be among you guys graduating and to all the families and friends who are out here today. When he initially invited me, Dean Tiffany told me I had about 7 minutes, but then I did the calculation at the current rate of exchange, 7 American minutes equals 10 Canadian minutes, so you can relax, everybody. I am a member of the first graduating class. I am a test case for the effects of a College of Creative Studies education. And I am an example of how the college literature program is either a foundation for a life of nonstop creative adventures and daily thrills, or, depending on how you feel about freelance storytelling as a career choice, a preparation for spending 40 years doing stuff that's totally underpaid and hard to explain to the person sitting next to you on the airplane. I think both outcomes have been true in my case. And I just wanted to say a very few words about my time at the college, what it meant to me, and then tell you guys a story. I'm a great believer that the best education in the world comes from contending with dragons. Perhaps appropriate you're wearing your hat today. Dragon-based pedagogy. And by that I mean spending time with people who are incredibly smart, principled, profoundly skilled, passionate about what they do. And the college for me, and I suspect for all of you graduating today, was a place that made such encounters with dragons possible. When you meet a dragon, and in my case my literature teacher is Marvin Mudrick, the founder of College of Creative Studies, the poet Al Stevens, the novelist Max Schott, and my fellow students, some of whom are right here today, you inevitably get scorched by dragon fire. Afterwards, though, when you come to your senses, you understand that your teacher has shown you a way to be more fully human. You understand you've been brought to the very edge of a world where risk and discovery and experimentation are necessary and noble ways to live. And most of all, you understand that your life will never be the same again. And I think you also learn, at least I did as a literature student, I'm sure it's the same in all the disciplines here, that creative work is not only beautiful, moving, entertaining, in the case of the sciences, accurate, elegant, and satisfying. It is also useful. And I want to give you one example of how useful it was for me in just a moment. My teachers were very generous, amazingly generous, always willing to keep the conversation going outside of class, anywhere you could find them. And what they really, doesn't bother me, I'm a storyteller. Keep talking, kid. I'm used to it. What I remember most vividly is that they made me feel welcome in the circle of literature. And believe me, I'm a high school dropout. I was the least likely person to succeed that you could ever imagine coming to a university. They welcomed me in. And not only was I welcomed, I was made to feel that I, right from the beginning, as ignorant as I was a full-fledged member of the tribe of literature. I didn't know anything yet, but I was already in the circle. And that was a gift that the college gave to me, and I suspect gave to all of you as well. I'm not even quite sure how I got in. To tell you the truth, I was a student at San Marcos here in Santa Barbara. I had moved here from Detroit. I dropped out. I had written some pretty bad poetry. Professor Mudrick was looking for recruits. And we do know that my mother spent some time in his office. She was beautiful, persuasive, and Romanian. And Romanians always get their way. So, but for me, I was amazed to learn there was room at this feast of ideas and conversation, room for even someone like me. And the conversations have continued. They were conversations about Dr. Johnson and Boswell and Homer and Chaucer and Shakespeare, Jane Austen, the Icelandic sagas. And they were also conversations about our own creative work and about our lives and all the hopes and the dreams that we had and the terrors of being 20-year-olds, and now that I'm 60, the terrors and the hopes and the dreams that continue to this age as well, especially if you're working in the arts. Those conversations were not ephemeral because they've stayed with me for 40 years. And they're still my compass in life and in art making. And those conversations, you think, what are conversations? They're just words. But that's what was so distinctive about the college then and I think now. Those conversations with dragons stay with you for the rest of your life. One thing I learned at the college was to love Chaucer, and my friend Ellen Yeomans inspired me to memorize the Miller's Tale. And you would be astonished how useful it is to have 600 lines of Middle English rhyming couplets in your head. Very good for going to the dentist. Very good for swimming laps. Very good when our second son was in the neonatal intensive care unit, not expected to live, and I sat beside his crib and recited Chaucer, and we used to say that instead of his first words being beep, 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 maybe they would be Juan that opera with a shura sota, the drocht of marcheth persit, or the rota. I just wanted to mention how useful also the Chaucer was when I got arrested with a few people in this room right now. And we were in jail. It was a political demonstration way back. I hate nostalgia, everybody. Relax. I'm not going to give you my home videos, but I will tell you, we were in jail. And when the guards came along with their shotguns, they probably wondered why I was giggling. And the reason was I was running Chaucer lines. I was reciting Chaucer and giggling about how Alisoun was up there and she opened the window and she stuck something out the window and Absalom kissed this something. Aback he stert and thought it was amiss, for well he wist a woman hath no beard. He felt a thing all rough and long he harried. We won't go into the details, but anyway, I giggled and it drove the guards crazy. In other words, literature is useful. And I just wanted to end by telling you a little story that happened to me when I was out on the road. I left here, I moved to Toronto, I worked at a summer camp for very poor children. I became a storyteller. We have a saying in Canada, what's for you won't go by you. I think you really understand that if you're a student at the college, because you find out what is for you. And then that's what you spend your life struggling with, trying to get good at, and it takes a long time. But I became a storyteller. And one day I was telling stories to some 10-year-olds from a Catholic school. And I wasn't quite sure what story to tell them. And that's a moment in storytelling that's always interesting. You're trying to decide what story will fit this particular group. In fact, there's a great Jewish story about that. Do you know that the rabbi who was famous for always telling the right story at the right moment? Maybe Dean Tiffany knows that story. His student came to him one day and said, "Oh, great rabbi, what is your skill? How did you learn always to know what story to tell at the right moment?" And the rabbi looked at the student and said, "That reminds me of a story," he said. He said, "There was a young man who became a sharpshooter. He studied sharpshooting. He became world-class sharpshooter. He was at the Academy of Sharpshooting, and he learned every skill there was. He was great. And he was riding home to show his parents, rather like you guys today, graduated. He was a great sharpshooter. And as he was riding home, he came to a little village. And in the village was a barn. And on the side of the barn, there were 100 targets. And in the dead center of each target, somebody had shot a perfect bullseye. Now, he was good. He was Olympic level. He couldn't do that. Got off his horse. He looked around this little village. He said, "Who in this village is the world's greatest sharpshooter? I would like to learn the skill of shooting 100 perfect bullseyes." A little girl came across the street. She said, "I did it, sir. It was me." "Yeah, all right." He said, "How could that be? How could you learn all those skills? I am a master sharpshooter. I couldn't do it." She said, "Let me explain. I don't draw the target first. First I shoot, afterwards I draw the target." And the rabbi said, "It's the same with me. I go through life listening, learning, inventing. I fill my head with stories. When you go through life with a head full of good stories, it's never hard to find a moment to put the story around." And then I knew what story to tell these kids. It's near Halloween. I told them the golden arm. Briefly, believe me, I have got a watch up here, I know. Express version, a man wanted to get married. He searched the world. He found a woman, he loved her, he invited her to marry him, he asked her. She was very nice, well educated, she had a right arm made of solid gold. He said, I really love you. Would you marry me? And she agreed, and they were married. But after a while, she was sick, and she called her husband one day and said, nobody knows what's wrong, but I think I'm going to die. I want you to promise to bury me with my golden arm. He promised. She died. This is the short version. He was sad. He came to the graveyard with a shovel. He dug up the grave. He took off the lid. He took the golden arm off the body. He took it home. He put it under his pillow. And he had golden dreams for a number of nights until one night he had a nightmare that he was back at the grave and the coffin was empty. He looked up. He was so scared, and coming towards him was the ghost of his wife. And she stood at the end of his bed, and she said, he looked at her, he said, what has become of your beautiful hair? She said, all withered and wasted away. And he said, what has become of your cheeks so fair? And she said, all withered and wasted away. He said, what has become of your lovely eyes? And again she said, all withered and wasted away. She was leaning towards him. He pulled up his blankets. And by the way, this is instinctive. When you're scared at night, don't you pull up your blankets? I was in an earthquake right here in Santa Barbara once. In the middle of the night, I pulled up my blankets. And she was leaning over, and he said, and what has become of your ruby red lips? All withered and wasted away. And what has become of your golden arm? And as she leaned over the bed towards him, she said, you have it. Now, I was going easy here for the dean and the chancellor and everybody else. Anyway, big jump. Everybody in my little group of grade 10s jumped except one girl. And I came to her afterwards and I said, did you like the stories? She said, I liked them, but when you told that last one, I didn't jump. She was holding something around her neck. And I said to her, I noticed you didn't jump, and why? And she said, well, when I knew it was going to be scary, I held the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she looked at me and said, you should get one. So I said to her, maybe not, I'm Jewish. She said, that's okay, sir, get a Jewish one. So I'm just going to end my talk with that girl's wisdom in my ear and in yours, I hope, because she knew that when life gets scary, you must hold on to something. Human beings need guidance. We need a talisman of some kind to help us navigate strange and difficult seas. The world we live in now is unprecedented, stranger than any world that has come before us. We are going through experiences that no generation of human beings has ever dealt with before. And ironically, we've created a world where we have many, many ways to communicate and fewer stories to tell. So I just wanted to end by saying that as you move further into the world, graduates, the stories you write, the music you create, the scientific discoveries you make possible might be those very things that your fellow citizens hold on to for guidance. They might be the talisman that we all need to guide us through these troubling times. There's a Gaelic proverb that says, every force evolves a form. Well, we know that the force of creativity is strongly with you all. And now as you leave the college, I hope you spend the rest of your lives giving this great force rich and imaginative form.